about please what's the topic? I've forgotten. The next topic for today.
Okay, we are discussing the science behind everyday human behavior.
The causes behind everyday human being.
Science behind
Okay.
everyday human
Okay, we are talking about science behind everyday human
behavior.
the science behind everyday human's health, right? Something like that.
Human behavior. Don't worry, forget
Okay,
about the
human
topic. I
behavior.
think they are talking for me.
Okay, no problem. So no problem. So let's just bring scientists into the mood to teach us about this. So we will not take much of your time. We will just stay for about 15 to 30 minutes and then we'll go. So proceed.
Okay, welcome guys, and thank you for joining us today on this live session. Last week, I introduced this topic where we were discussing the science behind everyday human behavior. Previously, we discussed everyday habits that silently affects our health. And then today we are discussing the science behind everyday human behavior. It was introduced last week, and then I talked on how we form habits, and then I also discussed on how why we procrastinate. Yes, I talked on the reason why we procrastinate, how
Yeah.
we procrastinate. A lot of us procrastinate without knowing why we do these things. And then this particular topic, I chose it. I chose it immediately after everyday habits that affect our health for a particular reason. When you already know the habits that you do, the things that you do that affect your health, just like the screen addiction, alcohol intake, lack of exercise, poor diet, and so on and so forth. You know those things. Now, I specifically chose science behind everyday human behavior. Why? Because when you know the reason why you consistently do this thing, when you know the science behind it, you will be able to stop it, especially for the habits that you've been trying to stop and you can't stop. When you know the reason why this thing is going on, when you are able to know the cue, we talked about the cue when we discussed habits. When you are able to find the cue, the trigger, then you will be able to stop it. So that is why I single-handedly chose this topic, and I'm following it little by little, so that you are able to deal with things you are going through. There are some things that the doctor do, they can't, there's no drug for it. You just have to practice it. These are habits. These are emotions. You just have to handle them on your own. So that is the reason for this live session, and that is the reason for this particular topic. So last week we dealt on procrastination, and I believe that you took the lessons and then you took the things I talked about seriously. Yeah, I believe you
Yeah.
took them seriously, and I believe you applied them to the things that you want to stop. I talked on habits, I talked on procrastination. There's a reason why I paired those two last week. There's a reason why I paired the both of them last week. And I really want you to still implement it. Implement it and see how far you go in your academics, in your business, whatever idea you have, try and implement all these things we are talking about, and then you see how far you go. And then today we'll be talking on reason why people fall in love. A lot of us are in love. A lot of us say, I love you. We are into relationships. But we don't know why all these things are happening. You feel a lot of at times you'll be scrolling, you somebody say, um 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 butterflies in my I feel butterflies in my belly. Yes, you feel butterflies in your belly, but why do you feel butterfly in your why
Okay.
why is it like that? So that is what we are going to be discussing today. Um, so going to be short because it's for today. So the reason why we fall in love is because there are portions of our brain that trigger hormones like dopamine, they trigger oxytocin, vasopressin, noradrenaline, and testosterone also. They play a role in all of these things. The sections of
Okay.
our brain. And you know one thing about this our brain is that whatever that it doesn't find rewarding, it will not engage in it. Last week we talked on habits, and I told you that whatever habits that your brain does not find rewarding, like brushing your teeth, when you brush your teeth, your teeth is neat and then you can smile comfortably. That is why your brain does those things perpetually. It doesn't like to stress. So now, falling in love, your brain gets reward from it. That is why all of these actions, it is able to perform them because it gets reward from it. So when you fall in love, or when all those stimuli are into place, there are hormones that are playing a role. I mentioned dopamine, I mentioned oxytocin, I mentioned noradrenaline, and I mentioned sex hormones, which are testosterone and estrogen. And now I'm
Okay.
going to talk on them and tell you how these hormones they play a role in it. Something like dopamine in the early stages, um when you recently met somebody and you are passionate about this particular person, dopamine, it creates a sense of presence. You kind of feel that person even when that person is not there. You mesmerize about this particular person. You imagine things. At times I don't know, at times I'm trying to link up a scenario here. At times you will kind of imagine this person doing this and then you reacting this particular way. That is the dopamine in your brain playing all those imaginations for you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
And then you crave this particular person. All those things, they are actions played by dopamine. And mind you, it is because you are in love. It is because you are passionate about this person. It is not because you don't feel anything. It is when you feel something. That is the dopamine that is reacting. When the both of you are compatible. When you feel like this person is your own, that is your dopamine reacting. You are craving the person. You are passionate about the person. Your dopamine is at work there. That is love. And then we'll talk about the oxytocin and vasopressin as a hormone. And then um when you fall in love, if you check very well, you see it is usually difficult to advise them. Sometimes you will tell them, this particular pair, you people are not a match, so you people don't make a good match. But this particular person will be training them. Why? Because their oxytocin and their vasopressin is already at work. It's already at work. So there's nothing you're telling that person that the person is going to listen to. There is nothing the person will listen to. The person trusts that particular person they are in love with. They will have so much trust in the person. They will be so attached to that particular person here, like there is no tomorrow. That trust, that attachment, that emotional satisfaction, it is as a result of oxytocin and vasopressin playing a role in that particular person. But mind you, you are already attached, you are already in love. You're already in love. Then the trust, the attachment, and it's played by oxytocin. And then you have your norepinephrine. You have your norepinephrine
Yeah.
and your serotonin. Yeah, serotonin is usually lowered. Serotonin is usually lowered. The norepinephrine, I told you, the norepinephrine make you have butterflies. When you experience butterfly in your belly, you see this person, then you start feeling you start feeling kind of happy. You get butter, your stomach will feel a bit. If you've been in love before, you experience it definitely. When you have butterflies in your belly, It is as a result of the actions of no epinephrine. No epinephrine is on the increase, and then serotonin is lowered. That is why you are feeling that way. So all these things you are explaining, it is because at times some love pairing are not compatible. Some persons they are not supposed to be together. So I am explaining this thing to you so that if there is anybody you don't want to be attached to again, you are going to be able to know that this is what is doing this thing, this is what is doing this thing, and then you try to suppress it or find something. What I said last week was when you identify the trigger, then
Mm-hmm.
happiness replace that particular routine. Probably when you see this person, you have butterflies in your belly, you start feeling kind of sweet, or you start feeling you will not be able to control your feelings again. This particular life, when you know all these things we're talking about, you understand all these things we are explaining here, then you will be able to handle yourself. You'll be able to handle yourself. There is somebody that you don't want to be attached to, but you cannot help yourself with it. This life session is for you. This life session will help you to be able to like get away from that person. So that is it. And then the next we are going to look at is the reason why people overthink. The reason why people
Okay.
overthink.
Wow.
Hope you can hear.
I would love to hear this one more.
Hope you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. The reason why people overthink. I told you that the brain doesn't like to stress itself. It doesn't like to stress itself. So that is why it forms a habit. Notwithstanding, your brain would always want to predict. There are some persons that their brain it can their brain can tell them this particular thing is going to happen now. That particular thing is going to happen then. And then it will be exactly as the brain tells them. So that is it about some persons. At times it could be genetic. At times it could be genetic. At times it
Okay.
could be your brain just forecasting in order to prepare you for challenges that you cannot solve. So that is what happens. And then there are some parts of um your brain overthinking. And then this is it's a prefrontal cortex. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
uh It involves your prefrontal cortex and then your anterior angular. That is what it involves. That is why you overthink. You try to avoid some certain challenges. You try to predict some certain things, and then you tend to overthink. And then I'll be moving over to why people compare themselves. Why there is always comparison. You
Okay.
want to you want to look like this particular person, or you want to be like this particular person, or you are checking your sources and this particular person's sources. So that is what we are going to of your brain that are involved in all those things. And then it is the anterior insular and then your dorsal anterior cingulates. That is what is
Okay.
involved when you are comparing yourself. That is what is involved. So, in order to stop all these particular things, you try to identify that particular thing that makes you to compare yourself. Once you identify it, the next thing is it from that particular environment, or you try to find another action. Try to find something else that you are going to be doing. If you see that you are starting to compare yourself, detach from that thing. You want to do comparison is not good. It is going to make you do things that normally you would not do. So what you do is you find that particular thing that makes you compare, or if it is a person, you find a particular person that makes you to compare yourself, and then the next thing is to detach from that person. Is it that you detach or you find something to keep
Uh-huh.
yourself busy? Find something to
Okay.
keep yourself busy. This is very, 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 very crucial. Find something to keep yourself busy with. And then I'm not going to talk much on that because I've already told you change your environment, that is to detach, or you keep yourself busy. Once you are busy, you will not be easily distracted. So the next I'll be talking on is why you laugh and the benefits of laughing.
Okay.
Why you laugh, the benefits of laughing. So
Okay.
when you laugh, at times it could be voluntary, at times it could be involuntary. At times you could see somebody that is laughing and then you start laughing. Yes. You could see me smiling and laughing and then the next thing you are laughing, you wouldn't even know when. You are laughing and then you can't stop. Okay. So it is this laughter is triggered by endorphins and is also triggered by dopamine and serotonin. Did you hear me?
I can hear you.
Said
Right
it,
on.
I said it laughter triggers endorphins and dopamine. It triggers
Okay.
endorphins and dopamine. And then once these endorphins and dopamines are triggered, they help to regulate blood flow. They help in regulating blood flow. And then they help to boost your immunity. They also help oxygen circulation in your body. They help oxygen circulation in your body. And then at times laughter could be contagious. That was why I said you could see somebody laughing and then you start laughing. It is contagious. Your involuntary laughter, when you laugh without controlling yourself, it is controlled by your thalamus. It is controlled by your thalamus
Okay.
and your amygdala. It is controlled by thalamus and amygdala. And then the voluntary laughter, the one you could control or the one you use yourself, is caused by motor cortex. These are parts of your brain. And there is so much noise here because of the news. So I think I will revisit this topic next week and then we still discuss on our other topic for next week. So that's what we are going to
Okay.
do
Is it raining?
today. Today I think
Is your
we
side
are
raining?
done.
Scientists. You can. Is your side raining?
I can't hear you. Can you type?
I say, is your side raining? Is it raining over there?
I said, can you type? Type. I can hear you.
Okay. I'm coming. Yes. Yes. Now without this thing, yes, I'm coming. More. I don't know where to type. Oh.
I'm not seeing what you typed. I can't see.
I'm coming. I'm trying to look for where to type. Oh my god. Can you hear me now?
Um, there is rain is falling, so I cannot hear you. But I know you are talking. Just that there is too much noise and I can't hear you. So that's why I said you should type. It is not network. Just type. Oh, cause everyday human everyday habits that silently affects our health. And then today we are discussing the science behind everyday human behavior. It was introduced last year, and then I talked on how we form habits and
Hello, scientist, are you there? Network. Ay. Hello. Ah, good. Where did I touch now? Hello. Wait. Network.
then I also did. Hello.
Well, our scientist is gone, oh. So I'm going to end this live stream. So sorry, guys. We're expecting to stay long, but it was not possible, and unfortunately, there is rain over there, raining heavily. So we're so sorry. Till we meet again next time. Bye.